name you need to know is
There we go. Now we're back.
Dan Martineau here, owner of DR Martineau Roofing of Southwest Florida. I've been repairing and replacing roofs for 27 years. We operate with integrity, knowledge, and service. Google DRM Roofing or call 239-332-1441.
License number CCC 1326954.
For professional roofing, the name you need to know is DR Martineau.
If a car dealer asks you for your tax refund, don't do it. If you've made a deposit, get it back.
Gotta go to Galliano.
Other dealers want your tax refund at Galliana Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram in Fort Myers. We don't need it. Right now, during the President's Day event, new Ram Quad Cab lease, just $299 per month. That's right. Motor Trend's Truck of the Year. Ram Quad Cab, $299 per month. Over 1,100 Chryslers, Dodges, Jeeps, and Rams. All at the absolute best prices in Southwest Florida. Qualifying purchases with zero down and no monthly payments till
that
August.
lid.
That's right. Zero down.
Nothing
and no
worse than a
monthly
little bit of
payments till
soap
August. And exclusive
that gets
of
stuck on the lid.
Galliana Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram in Fort Myers. We'll give you $6,000 minimum for any trade in any condition, running or not, at Galliana Chrysler Dodge
Cypress
Jeep Ram.
Point.
1/2 mile south of Daniels
That's the one
Parkway
you
on
can't
US
get on,
41
right?
in Fort Myers. Open every day, including Sunday. Call
Did you read that book ever?
239-481-2600.
I think I gave it to you. The match.
36 month lease, 10,000 miles per year.
Venturi.
No security deposit, minimum trade toward the purchase of select new vehicles. In stock units only. Offers don't combine.
Now back to Miller and Moulton. This is Miller and Moulton.
You're live.
$25 minutes past 7 o'clock. Miller and Moulton, Southwest Florida's Fox Sports Radio. Streaming, foxsportsfm.com, broadcasting live. Many a place. Make sure you sign up to the new Miller and Moulton YouTube channel. And Miller and Moulton also has a channel on twitch.tv. Graham Couch will join us top of the hour. The Mark D'Antonio aftermath at Michigan State. Ben Wittenstein, talk a little NBA, a little over an hour from now. Trade deadline is coming up in a little less than 8 hours. 3 o'clock this afternoon is the trade deadline. Lakers and Clippers both lining up to make a deal. I think they're both fighting over Marcus Morris of the Knicks. And is Milwaukee...
First time that's ever happened. Two teams fighting over a Knick.
You guys, it's been a long time since that was the case. Might have to go back to Walt Clyde Frazier since that was the case. And will Milwaukee do anything, or do they have to? I think they're 43-7. They're on pace to win 71 games. They're number one in defense and number two in offense in the league. I'm not so sure they need to do a thing.
I wouldn't. I really wouldn't, David. I mean, sometimes you can trade and screw things up.
You know,
I've seen it happen before.
The old, if it ain't broke, don't try to fix it. Bud Elliott to talk a little college football coming up in a matter of moments. Big meeting today in Los Angeles. The NFL really wants to get a deal done with the players. They want to get it done now. The contract's got 13 more months to go. It expires in March of 2021. But the NFL wants to do it now. And they want to get it done in the spring. I mean, they'd really like to have this thing done before the draft.
Right.
Because they're in preliminary negotiations with the networks, and so they want to be able to have labor peace.
Yeah, and what would be better for these negotiations than to be able to walk in and say, here's our 10-year deal.
Right.
We're not going anywhere. You have no worries at any portion of this contract of a labor stoppage.
And so they're putting a little pressure on the players, kind of like, hey, we've told you here's our cards. We're going to give you 48.5% of the revenue. Currently, you get 47%. Remember, revenue's doing nothing but going up. In fact, if you sign this deal we have in front of you, which includes an extra game, we'll play 17 instead of 16, you're going to have $500 million more per year to play with than if we just re-up what we currently have. Or if we re-up what we currently are offering at 48.5%. An extra $500 million for playing one extra game. Average careers, 3 to 4 years. Now you're saying to the average player, you're going to play 3 or 4 extra games. Is it worth it? I think financially you can make the case that it is. But the players really don't want to do it.
At least the leaders of the players don't.
And it does seem genuine. It does seem genuine. I mean, there are very few players who have publicly said they're in favor of it, quite frankly. I mean, forget even player reps, just players who were asked. Now, you could argue maybe this is just one of the rare unified fronts, because the Players Association in the NFL, let's face it, they splinter pretty quickly. I mean, we've had Gary Danielson on a couple hundred times on the show over the years, and there have been a couple of times in which we've actually talked about the NFL, and because he was a player rep, and he said, I looked at it differently than much of the rank and file, even though I wasn't a star player and I'd never made big money at all. But I was looking at benefits, I was looking at long-term, things like that, and players, you go, no, especially the NFL player, we're looking for the now. Non-guaranteed contracts, short careers, the whole deal. It's very tough for the players to think big picture, long-term. They seem to be doing a little bit more of that right now.
It is our poll question today is based off of that. Do you think NFL contracts should be guaranteed? And after my pining for why I like non-guaranteed contracts, I may have swayed the vote a little bit. We're back to 50-50.
Well, I told you I thought it was going to be close. I put the Card Sharks number at 56, and you went over.
Yeah, and because to me, because of the way the question is phrased, and I'm not joking when I say that, and I know I said this last segment, but if it were written, do you think your team should have guaranteed contracts? I think people would overwhelmingly say yes. But when they look at it on the whole, do you think NFL contracts should be guaranteed? No, I don't, but I'm really happy my teams are, because when so-and-so sucks, I want his you-know-what cut.
And I make the case, and I knew there'd be a few people that would go, somebody gets paid, and then, now all of a sudden they're not worth what they get. And of course, that ends up being the case some of the time. To me, though, I think there's very few instances in which guys get paid and then flat laid down. Like somebody brought up DeMarcus Lawrence this year with the Cowboys. Now, did he earn the $20 million a year that Jerry got him? No, he didn't earn it. But I don't think DeMarcus Lawrence laid down at all.
Someone did say Seymour with the Raiders, and I think you could make a case for that.
I don't know if he laid down or if Bill just traded him at the right time.
Right.
He traded him near the end of the rope, and he went from the dominant team to a bit of a
bad
mess.
Team,
and he showed up at Oakland and said, "Oh, this is a mess. What do I want to play here for?"
And Ndamukong Suh did it for most of his career.
And he's still doing it, and he's getting paid really well. Bud Elliott, we don't know if he's getting paid really well, but we know he's available when we call, and we appreciate him for that. He is, with Banner Society, never mind the fact, co-host of the Nolecast, helped found Tomahawk Nation. You can follow Bud on Twitter at Bud Elliott, 3. Bud, how you been? How are things?
Yeah, I've been well, and another signing day is in the books here, and it was not that eventful, but when all the dust settled, we had some familiar names at the top.
Well, we did, but one of the things that we were talking about earlier, Bud, is that anybody can recruit when they're on top. I mean, that's part of being on top. But Miami yesterday was able to steal a kid from Florida. I mean, we do remember those 3 games at the end of the year when they lost consecutively to some really bad football teams. And yet they ended up with a top 15 class. Manny Diaz did not finish the regular season well. But for a team that is in trouble, man, they've had a pretty solid offseason.
And indeed they have. I really like the top of Miami's class. I think this is something we talked about a little bit after the early signing period. I think the top of their class is really nice. They got a big win yesterday in Avante Williams, the safety out of DeLand, Florida, who you're referencing there. I wonder if the Ed Reed signing might have helped Miami in this specific recruitment here. With Ed being a Hall of Fame safety and Avante, being a safety. Florida fans are certainly mad about this. Florida is developing a reputation of not closing as well on signing day, which I think is important to differentiate from not recruiting well, because they're recruiting extremely well. But the past couple of years, they've had some sort of confounding, just failures to close on signing day with some notable kids going elsewhere that the Gators thought that they had. But yeah, Miami they did a really, really nice job. You would somewhat expect this a little bit, because you typically see a pretty good bump for the first full class that a new head coach is assembling. And then this is obviously Manny's first full class there. I think your abbreviated class is typically not very good. But, yeah, I was interested to see how they were going to do following a year on the field that was pretty disappointing.
All right, Bud, let's try to cover as much ground as we can. Give us 3 other teams that you think, since signing day, in the last 6 weeks, give me 3 programs in which you say, hey, they did good work.
Sure. Tennessee is certainly one. They got Malachi Weidman as flip from Florida State. They also landed a really talented athlete out of the state of Georgia. So I'll go Tennessee as my first one there. I'm going to give you Georgia because they held on to some kids who had previously committed to them but didn't sign early, and they had to fight for them down the stretch. And these are 2 top 50 offensive linemen nationally, and Georgia was able to keep both of them. So Georgia would be my 2 there. And then if I have to go for the non-SEC school, I'll go ahead and take Texas. They landed Alfred Collins, who's a 5-star defensive lineman. He's in their backyard, yes, but Matt Rule had kind of done a better job than Tom Herman on him for a while. And then when Rule took the NFL job, that created an opening, and Texas was able to swoop in and get him.
Bud, yesterday I was watching Twitter, and USC people were baffled. I saw one guy said, I've never had to look at recruiting rankings before and hit load more to find USC. How bad are things in SoCal?
Pretty bad. That is not a good recruiting class at all. And I got asked this yesterday on a podcast. I said, look, everybody in the national media thought Clay Helton was going to get fired. Everybody in the local media thought he was going to get fired. Local high school coaches expected Clay Helton to get fired. And so I think a lot of recruits out there were just sort of playing like a wait-and-see game. Like, yeah, okay, USC is always USC. I'm just going to wait to see who the new coach is. And there was not a new coach. And they basically had to recruit with a lame duck staff the entire year, at least in the minds of recruits and parents and coaches out there. And they didn't fire him. And they took forever to reaffirm that he was going to stay. I mean, that's what happened. The kids didn't think Clay Helton was going to be there next year for good reason. And then all of a sudden he was.
He's Bud Elliott of Banner Society, co-host of Nolecast. Follow him on Twitter, Bud Elliott, which is 2 L's, 2 T's, and the number 3. All right, give me, besides USC, give me 2 or 3 programs that had a rough 6 weeks.
Okay, so a rough 6 weeks. I would say Auburn a little bit because they failed to flip Broderick Jones from Georgia. It's hard to find the programs that really had rough 6 weeks. Ole Miss had a lot of hype around them as far as getting prospects in to visit, and I don't think they closed on quite as many as they thought they would. But it's the early signing period with a transition class, so it's hard to really peg that on them. I mean, we've seen these classes. If you fire your coach in the early signing period era, your class is probably going to be pretty poor. When Mike Norvell's class at Florida State yesterday was 22nd, right? That's the best new coach early signing period class of this season, and yet, to put it in perspective, it's also the worst class Florida State has ever signed in the recruiting rankings era.
Bud Elliott joins us from Banner Society talking National Recruiting Day, Signing Day. We were talking yesterday, and I know we're going to have Graham Couch on later. Where would you rank Michigan State's job? David and I were talking like a guy like Matt Campbell. Michigan State's got more money than Iowa State, but if you were Matt Campbell, would you leave to be the 4th best team in the Big Ten? I wouldn't. In the Big Ten East?
I wouldn't.
I wouldn't either. The more I thought about it, you're right.
I would tell them, pay me like another Matt, and that would be the Matt Rule contract at Baylor, because I don't know what I'm walking into, right? Am I walking into a program that's going to have recruiting sanctions as a result of this Curtis Blackwell stuff? Or is that all BS? As a coach, I don't know. I know Michigan State's probably going to tell me that it's all BS in the interview process. But if you recall, how did Baylor get Matt Rule to leave Temple? They gave him a 7-year deal that was almost fully guaranteed. That's what I want from Michigan State if I'm Matt Campbell. I'm like, look, that's the 4th best job in the East. I think we're pretty much in agreement that the other 3 programs are better. Some are a lot better there in the East. give me a 7-year deal that's fully guaranteed. That way it's really painful for you to fire me, which is going to allow me to make sure that I have enough time to do what I want to do in case y'all might have misread the tea leaves here as far as what's coming down the pipe, for sanctions or whatnot.
Hey, did Cincinnati and UCF make some headway here? I thought I've, in the last 6 weeks, paid attention to the fact that they were both able to secure some 4-star kids and either pull 1 or 2 away from some Power 5 schools and or hold on to them. Obviously, whenever a group of 5 school can land a kid that is being heavily pursued by some Power 5 schools, that's significant. Is UCF and Cincinnati beginning to make some recruiting headway?
UCF somewhat. Cincinnati is really kind of stands out among the rest here for the quality of their class. They're actually able to land a nationally relevant quarterback, which is a pretty rare thing for a G5 school. And this Cincinnati class is one of the best recruiting classes any of the G5 schools have ever signed. So they under Fickell, they really did a very nice job there, which obviously would make him assumedly one of the top candidates for that Michigan State job, to tie back into the last question. UCF is also seeing improvements on the recruiting trail just because they continue to invest in facilities, they continue to spend like a big-time program, and they continue to win ball games, right? Like, they didn't have the best year they've ever had, but they had another nice year, and I think that resonates with kids now. UCF has now been very good on the field for the entirety of high school recruits, high school careers so far. So in their formative years now, UCF has been pretty good. I think it's becoming more of an acceptable choice for the kids that are not the top targets for the in-state schools, obviously, but maybe some of the borderline kids. UCF is now more able to fight for those.
Well, and Mark, I'll just throw this out there. Also, the minute Scott Frost started having success at UCF, there was talk about when is he going to leave. You're not really hearing that about Josh Heupel.
Nope.
And I think that's also helping UCF right now. People kind of think that Heupel's going to be around at least for a little bit, and I think that's helping him with recruiting.
There's no doubt. I mean, boy, I tell you, they got up in arms yesterday. We had a poll question, who should replace D'Antonio, and David threw on Heupel because I've taken a lot of shots at UCF, so everybody assumed it was me. And the UCF fans were not happy with that even being on there. They do bow up pretty quickly when anything happens, but listen, it's a fact.
It's a compliment.
Oh, I know.
I mean, a top 25 job opens up, and your coach is on a short list. That's a compliment.
Well, let's go a few miles north of Orlando. The Gators had a good recruiting class, but a couple of guys got flipped. Just your thoughts on what Mullen did start to finish.
It's clearly the best class he's had there so far. Gervon Dexter is a name y'all will want to know. He like a 6'6" defensive tackle, relatively new to the sport, pretty explosive. He's coming along really nicely. Like you saw Gervon 2 years ago, and you see him now, and you're like, man, that development curve is just vertical. He's really catching on. He's a guy who can make a difference for them early on in the cycle. They managed to get a big win over Clemson for Xavier Henderson, who is the brother of the Gators corner C.J. Henderson. And you might say, they should get him. But no, that was a legitimate battle all the way to the end until they were able to get C.J. And that was huge for them. He's a receiver, whereas his brother obviously is a corner. The kid they lost yesterday, not lost, but just failed to land, Avante Williams. The Athletic, I know, had a story where they had a reporter embedded, and Florida absolutely thought they were getting him because he told him that he was coming, and then he ends up picking Miami one day later. So that's recruiting for you, right? But then I think they did a really good job, certainly better than last year. I was critical of last year's Florida class because I thought that they either knowingly, in order to pump up their recruiting rankings, took a bunch of kids who we in the industry believe would not qualify, and they didn't qualify, or unknowingly, right, which was potentially worse. And thus, I thought their recruiting ranking last year was a bit of kind of a fraud. But this year, I really am impressed with what the Gators did. They seem to have regrouped internally, a little bit more organized, and I think their class is very nice.
All right. Is Florida, though, ready for the hype that they're about to get? I mean, as soon as LSU beat Clemson, everyone started looking ahead to 2020. And when Georgia lost all that they lost, Florida was immediately declared the favorite in the East. And then therefore that made them a national championship contender. And I know they have finished in the top 10 each of the last 2 years, but they've kind of been, the 2-loss, backdoor their way into the top 10, not really in contention the whole year for a championship top 10 team. And I'm wondering, is Florida being set up for in 2020 to be the Michigan of 2019?
I think it's possible, but I'll note that Florida could win the East this year without being the best team in the East, right? Like if you run your simulations, go home and do this when you guys get off the air. Florida gets LSU in Gainesville.
Right.
And their other game from the West, I believe, is what, Arkansas?
I believe you're right.
So,
and meanwhile, Georgia's got to go to Bama.
And play Auburn.
Correct. Yes, right. So there's a very realistic chance that the West, that Florida, I'm not saying they will lose to Georgia, but it is very possible that if they lose to Georgia, that they could still win the East. So I think that, by the way, I don't know that they would be an underdog to Georgia at this point. I have to see what Georgia's going to look like on offense. I mean, was that James Coley, or was it maybe Kirby Smart's influence in putting the thumb on the offense there? I guess we'll have to see. But they have a lot of really good pieces. They did lose a bunch at receiver. And last year, they chucked the ball around a lot more than I think Dan Mullen teams really ever have, with the exception of maybe that one Dak Prescott year at Mississippi State. Are they going to get back to running the football more now that they lost a bunch of receiver? I know they have some guys in the secondary they have to replace, but overall, that should be a pretty good team.
Yes, it should. I do think they need to be more physical at the point of attack. They can pass block and they can pass rush, but they don't necessarily stop the run nor run the ball. And I don't know if you can win a championship if you're not stronger, more physical at the point of attack than I think the Gators are right now. That's my big concern. Bud, hopefully we can catch up sometime before spring ball. Glad all is well with you and the family. Continued success with Banner Society and Nolecast.
Thanks, guys. Be well.
Bud Elliott, follow him on Twitter. Bud Elliott, the number 3. That's 2 L's, 2 T's. Bud Elliott 3 on Twitter. Co-host of Nolecast and a big part of Banner Society. If you go back, by the way, over the last 2 years, Bud Elliott, when talking about Florida State, has been staggeringly good. And in advance, telling you, here's what's happening and this is what it's going to mean in 1 to 3 months from now. You need to trust me. I mean, if you're a Florida State fan and you're not subscribing to Bud Elliott, you're really missing out. He's been amazing, actually, in his insight with that program. Just needs to be pointed out. At least I feel so.
Okay.
So,
I didn't interrupt.
No, you didn't.
I let you say everything you had to say.
You're going to get to say what you have to say next.
Well, if you quit talking about Bud Elliott.
Today was the day when on Miller and Moulton and Elliott on Southwest Florida's Fox Sports Radio.
Drive home with the Doug
So,
Gottlieb
you're clear.
Show.
I still haven't.
Clark Hunt, who's of course the chairman of the Chiefs, he said sometime in the next 12 to 15 months
That's
to
fine.
extend Patrick. When I say right time, I mean right time for both player
So I'm
and
watching,
club.
then we play the
We
game.
do this thing where
Got
you
it.
got to
Last
tear
guy.
up that
I
deal.
couldn't tell you the
No,
guy's
you don't.
name.
You're under
Guy is a
contract. There's a
Georgetown
fifth-year
professor,
option.
author,
Then there's the
black
franchise
dude.
tag. It's because
Holy
everybody's like, well,
fuck.
you got to pay him more than everybody else.
Smart.
Okay,
I wanna
how
go
much
buy
more?
books.
Doug Gottlieb, afternoons at 3 on
Malcolm
Southwest
X.
Florida's
Martin Luther
Fox
King.
Sports Radio.
He's done a bunch of other
Hi, it's Don
and the
Shula.
guy
Shula's
is-
Steakhouse is a perfect place
Like,
for
he
a
is
perfect
a
Valentine's
poet, rap
Day
song.
evening.
I mean, his-
Make your
the way he
reservations
orates is
early.
Valentine's Day dinner
And
will be
so,
extra special
some-
at Shula's
called
with Wagyu
Jay-Z,
steak with Bordelaise sauce
the Robert
or roasted
Frost.
halibut with carrot puree, heirloom
And
carrot
you can have one, I
marigold,
say
and
that.
Florida citrus vinaigrettes.
Don't mind-
Shula's
don't
famous
mind
regular
talking
menu
about
is
it.
always available, so make your reservations early for dinner with your Valentine. Shula's in the
Yeah.
Naples Hilton,
And I-
239-430-4999. That's 430-4999.
Pain level was over 10.
What do you
There's
mean?
days where I just
His
sat and
words were
cried to
old,
chest. They
man.
were to take me.
And then the
And my
other
doctor
guy
recommended that
he
I go
starts doing
to
another
Good
one,
Feet and
and
try
they
the
both
arch
start going
supports.
back and forth. And
So
it
I
was
put
just-
the arch supports
to
in
be
and took
fascinating.
about
It was
3-4
really-
steps.
It was like good television.
Turned around and went
But
and
then
sat
he's
back down
telling
and
a
started
story.
to cry.
He's talking about
It's
some
the first time
Marv brings up
and I
this
had
book
no
that
pain.
Oprah
For over 20 years, we've been helping people like Dave actually
trying to
live
get
the
across
life
the
they
border.
envision
A lot of people
without
are
their
against
feet
it.
getting in the way.
75% white
Since then,
people.
I've been
And
doing
he starts
so
making
many
a point,
things with my
and I
children.
forgot that
I went hiking this
David
last summer
Bolt,
with my daughter,
who
something
wrote
that
the
I
book,
never thought was
who
possible
wrote the book
because
on
I
the
couldn't
volcano.
walk.
I think it was something along those
There's
lines.
people out there that made a
Margaret.
product that changed people's lives.
Well,
I am not an actor. I am an
and you
individual
could tell
father
Martin
and
that
wanted
heard
to
of the
share
book,
his testimony
never
with
read the
other
book.
people out there about my
He
good
has no
feet.
idea who he's fucking talking
See what
about.
we
He
can
says,
do for you with a free
Obviously, one of the
personalized
best,
arch support fitting.
Maybe
The
the
Good
best
Feet
book
Store.
of the 20th
Call
century.
552-FEET
Duh.
or visit us in Naples or our newest store in Fort Myers.
And he had mentioned four
Hi,
books
this is Rich
before.
Castellano.
Went
I invite you to
fly
come check
over
out
Mars,
the world
and
famous
Mars,
cigar bar.
Nobody beats the
And he goes,
world-famous
duh.
cigar bar.
I liked it
Southwest
almost
Florida's
as much as
original
duh.
cigar bar since 1996, with locations in historic downtown Fort Myers, Gulf
but
Coast Town
the guy
Center,
came
and
out in a
Cape
Kobe
Coral.
jersey,
Sit at
and
the
he was
bar
pretty
or
tight
relax
with
in the
Kobe.
lounge in comfort,
Told
with
a couple
plenty
of
of
nice Kobe
TVs at all
stories.
3 locations, where you can watch your favorite sports in
because
comfort.
he knew
Step
him.
into the
Two
humidor
stories he
and
told
let one
about
of our
Kobe
experienced
is
tobacconists
both
help
kid
you
with
pick the
cancer, someone
perfect
got a hold
cigar
of
from
him,
our great
son was a
selection.
huge
And
fan,
the liquor,
Kobe,
martinis,
sent
single
him a
malt
bunch of
scotches,
stuff,
small batch
and
bourbons,
and like
high-end
the-
cognacs,
the other
and a
one
great
was
selection
kid
of
in
craft
Israel
beers.
who was
Nothing
also
can compare to the
sick,
selection,
and
experience,
they knew
and
this guy
atmosphere
knew
of the
Kobe, got a
world-famous
hold of
cigar
Kobe,
bar
would
in
he
historic
be able to
downtown
do
Fort
like a
Myers at the corner of
video
Thurston Henry, at the
event?
Gulf Coast Town
He
Center
went,
Mall
did a
next to
full,
Outback Steakhouse,
studio
and in Cape
production,
Coral on 47th Terrace in the
thing for
Big
this
John's
kid and sent it to
Plaza.
me. He's like,
Good
"Just wanna
times,
let people
great
know
cigars
stuff."
at the world famous cigar bar.
And don't
he was
forget
a bad
Cigar
guy a
Bar
long
Live
time.
downtown.
Kind of-
Contact Miller and Moulton anytime.
Call me
Well,
Daddy.
Save
hey,
the
if
Williamson
we all
Brothers
can't prove
Marine
it, we're all
Text and Talk line
Not
to
saying
your
that I-
contacts.
Who's got it better than us?
239-249.
You know, Kentucky did
8167.
recruiting. We did get somebody half.
We're on the phone with our good friend Tim Meister, owner of the Floor Meisters in Naples. TJ, we hear you've added several new colors of Cortec to your great lineup of products at the store. Tell us more about that.
We just ordered 5 new colors of Cortec for our stock. All nice, light, beautiful colors for Southwest Florida. That'll bring our total of 55 colors of Cortec in stock every day for purchase and take home.
And it's not just the many colors of Cortec that you have. You also have other Cortec products as well.
We also carry the Cortec Stone product. Looks like tile, looks like stone, but it's Cortec, so you get the softness, quietness, and the easy installation to go with it. We also have Cortec wood, look of wood, real wood, but with a more stable core for Southwest Florida's humidity.
If you haven't been to the Floor Meisters, you really owe it to yourself to visit
well,
the
that's-
store.
that's what I asked.
6281
I mean,
Naples
'cause there's
Boulevard,
a lot
right
of
next to
people that,
Costco.
saying
Or
it's,
go online,
heroic doing what he did, and there's a lot of others
floormeisters.com.
going-
That's floormeisters.com.
Yeah.
No matter where you're boating, with Towboat US, you're covered by the world's largest towing fleet with over 300 ports nationwide. Your local Towboat US companies in Charlotte, Lee, and Collier counties are here to help 24/7, 365
He's
days
the
a
only one
year.
that's ever done it,
Inland,
though.
the river to
Ever, so
and
don't
out
just go look at
75
this
nautical
group.
miles. And numerous specials are running all year. Call 239-945-1664 for more information, or visit towboatuscapecoral.com.
Did you see the
With
Cubs
Towboat
prediction
US,
in
you're
one magazine
never
was like
stuck on the
82
water.
and 80?
Now back to Miller and Moulton. This is Miller and Moulton.
You're live.
9 minutes before 8 o'clock, Miller and Moulton. Talk a little football and basketball next hour, but without further ado, time now for...
Miller and Moulton's Today Was the Day When, giving you the history of today's date so you're a beacon of useless knowledge around the office.
Useless, but a lot of fun to talk about.
This is Today Was the Day When, Fox Sports Radio and FoxSportsFM.com.
We start today in 1935, where the Monopoly board game first goes on sale.
When?
1935.
Wow, 85 years of Monopoly.
Right. In fact, the first game that started in 1935 is still being played. 1943, Frank Sinatra debuts on radio's Your Hit Parade. Don't know what happened to him after that. David, yesterday I was chastised in this segment because we don't do enough sports, and I'm supposed to give more insignificant sports things.
Well, how about some significant sports?
So for that, in 1948, world and European champion Barbara Ann Scott becomes the first Canadian to win a women's figure skating Olympic gold medal in the Winter Games in 48. So there you go.
Now you're just being a jerk.
1951. Paul Harvey is arrested for trying to sneak into the Argonne National Laboratory, a nuclear test site located 20 miles west of Chicago. And David, now you know the rest of the story. Today in 1952, Liz II, Queenie, succeeded George VI, and she's been the queen ever since. She's lost Australia, Canada, and New Zealand. No other monarch in Britain has had such a horrible run. A lot of years, but gave up a lot of land.
Held on to the Falklands, though. That was big. That was big.
1958, Boston fans did not complain to ownership when they signed Ted Williams to the highest contract in Major League Baseball, $135,000. How are you not paying Mookie Betts?
Well, don't get me started.
The Righteous Brothers, You've Lost That Love and Feeling, was number one today in 1965.
Great tune.
Made Top Gun. 1967, Muhammad Ali pummels Ernie Terrell 15 rounds at the Astrodome. 1968, Ike gets a hole in one, and golf rounds went from 4 hours to 5 hours instantly. Had a buddy's father who said the two worst things ever to happen to golf were Nicklaus and Ike for slow play.
Interesting. I never heard Ike being blamed for slow play.
No, so many people played because of Ike, it slowed the game down. The popularity of the game. 1970, the NBA expands to 18. Buffalo, Cleveland, Houston, and Portland go to the league. 82, Centerfold by Jay Giles is the number one song in the land.
And we all thought Martha Quinn was in the video.
That song was a big song at the roller rinks. I was a roller skater back in about 82. That was a biggie.
You and my wife are the same age.
Yeah,
so,
that was a biggie at the roller rink. I'm telling you right now.
Right there.
Brockway was one. The Brockway roller rink, and then I think the Fashion Square was the other one, if memory serves me right. Brett Hall scores 50, so the father-son was complete in 1990. The Orioles begin groundbreaking on their new $102 million stadium today in 1990.
Called Camden Yards and ready for
$102 million. Add a zero now for a stadium.
Yeah, you got that right.
Wow. Riddick Bowe knocks out Michael Dokes in the first round to retain or for the title in 93. 2011 at Jerry's World, Packers 31, Steelers 25. MVP Aaron Rodgers. How many Super Bowls will Aaron Rodgers win? It's limitless, right? Right?
Neither franchise has been back to the game since.
In 2014, Jay Leno ends his time officially on The Tonight Show.
You mean the second go-around?
Yes.
Okay.
If you were born today, you share your birthday with Aaron Burr, our third vice president, and very popular these days because he's the guy that killed Hamilton. 1895, you may have heard of him. Babe Ruth, born today in 1895.
Yeah, you know what, Burr, okay, so he won the battle, but, you're not hearing Burr on Broadway, are you?
No, you're not.
No.
Ronald Reagan, born today in 1911, whose presidency just keeps getting better.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does.
Now some meaningless actor and actresses. Zsa Gabor was born today in 1917, and Rip Torn, born today in 1931. Who's older, Mike Farrell, B.J. Honeycutt from MASH, or Tom Brokaw?
I'm going to go Brokaw.
No, Farrell, born in 39, Brokaw 40. We started with Bob Marley because he was born today in 1945. This guy that we're listening to right now, born in Lafayette, Indiana in 1962. William Bailey. We know him better as Axl Rose. Gord Downey, the late lead singer of the Tragically Hip, was born today in 1964. Tom Tupa, just because I like saying the name, born today in 66. And Fred Miller, because he shares the name with my father, the former tackle from the St. Louis Rams, born today in 1973. And that is, today was the day when, on this 6th of February, 2020.
Wow, some noteworthy stuff there. So Sinatra made his basically debut, and Reagan was born on
There
the
you
stage.
go.
Got a lot going on.
Graham Couch to talk Mark D'Antonio next. Miller and Moulton.
You're clear.
On 2nd and 7, Johnson takes a snap and rolls right. Oh, and he goes down hard. Flags fly on the play. There's a lot of laundry on the field after that hit.
Dirty laundry piling up? New Image Cleaners can help. New Image Cleaners has been Southwest Florida's #1 local cleaner since 1975, offering dry cleaning, shirt service, tailoring, and even free pickup and delivery. New Image Cleaners at 2 Fort Myers locations and online at newimagecleaners.com. newimagecleaners.com.
FGCU basketball is on Southwest Florida's Fox Sports Radio.
Yeah, that's okay. I didn't know if Fort Myers need to be true.
Coming up Thursday, Dunk City takes on Stetson. Pre-game at 6:45, tip at 7.
FGCU Athletics on Southwest Florida's Fox Sports Radio.
Model
presented by the Kelleher Firm.
We are Fox Sports.
Hey, Sean here again for Cathedral Roofing Innovations. Look, my fellow Naples homeowners, you should now be seeing homes with tile roofs getting replaced in your neighborhoods. Now, this is all a result from Hurricane Irma and the damage it caused to an estimated 75% of all tile roofs in Southwest Florida. And still, only 15% of you have received your new tile roof. Your neighbors are now all increasing the value and the curb appeal of their homes with these new tile roofs. So do the same and call Cathedral Roofing Innovations. Cathedral Roofing Innovations, the tile roof experts right here in Southwest Florida. Now remember, just because you don't have any leaks, well, that doesn't mean you don't have any damage. And with Cathedral Roofing Innovations, you're going to get a great roofing company to come out, inspect your roof for damage. Just go to cathedralroofingnaples.com. That's cathedralroofingnaples.com.
You aware of this story? I'm sure you are.
License number CCC 1327875.
Hoops in the hallways, battling in the break room, and target practice in the urinals. WFSX-AM from the Rock to downtown Fort Myers.
Manish, yeah, but Manish has got an exclusive. Basically, talking.
What's trending now on Fox Sports Radio is sponsored by Stevie Tito's sports page in Naples, Fort Myers, and Cape Coral.
It's a BS. It's not illegal. It's BS. It's a Jets move. It's another GM in the league. It's a Jets move. Because they said they were going to move him to a job, and they fired him. He's suing him for $1 million. Sounds like he's got a case. But I just love that line. It's a Jets move. Wait, Graham.
Got your caller.
Okay.
Thank you.
I did that right. Graham's now, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Just want to make sure I got the right picture. I don't think we need to go more than 10.
Yeah, that's fine.
Pitbull. The onion Pitbull mix only bites off half of Todd.
There's only one way to wake up in the morning.
How the heck are you?
Yep, that's it. Miller,
Shelter from the storm, huh?
and Moulton.
Yeah, sounds like a song.
Southwest Florida's Fox Sports Radio.
All guests appear on the Goldberg Noon Abraham Hotline. Goldberg-law.com.
Maybe they set our contracts.
It's up to you now. It's up to you. I like it.
Now, the best local sports show this town has ever heard. Here's Miller and Moulton.
You're live.
Couple minutes past 8 o'clock on this Thursday morning. Thanks for being with us. Miller and Moulton, Southwest Florida's Fox Sports Radio. Reminder tonight, 6:45 pregame, 7 o'clock tip. FGCU playing host to Stetson, presented by the Kelleher Law Firm right here on Southwest Florida's Fox Sports Radio. Stream this show and every other on the station at foxsportsfm.com. All guests appearing via the Goldberg Noon Abraham Law Firm hotline, goldberg-law.com. Local people, local practice, and local knowledge. And Graham Couch is kind enough to join us on said hotline. He of the Lansing State Journal. Follow him on Twitter at Graham_Couch. Graham, top of the morning to you. How are you?
I'm doing well. How about you guys?
Well, we are fine. Graham, when Michigan State's football season ended, did you think that was D'Antonio's last game?
I did not. What's interesting is I thought going into the season that it was D'Antonio's last year. But I thought that changed. Before the season, there was a calmness to him, sort of a peace. I think he thought he had a squad that could really compete. that could let him kind of go out on top, or at least with a team that was a contender. And he misjudged it. And when things started to fall apart, there became a point where I don't think he wanted to walk away from it like that. And so he talked about rolling up his sleeves and staying in the fight. And I thought he was going to do it. And there was also a $4.3 million bonus due in mid-January that was enticing, which he obviously stayed through at least. But as of beginning of January, he called his coaches back from a quick vacation and told them they were going to be retained and started making plans. And I think he intended to come back as of early January.
So is it the Blackwell deposition? Is it a new president and athletic director flexing their muscles? What caused the end of this? He says it's because he couldn't look at recruits and say he's going to be there in 3 years. Graham, I'm sorry. I didn't buy it. It seems like there's more there. Am I reading too much into this?
Yeah, I mean, I do think there is sort of, as he described it, sort of an avalanche that stopped making things fun. I mean, there's a cumulative effect, I believe, of the losing of. I don't think his wife wanted him to keep doing this, of everything that was going on in terms of a little bit of administration pressure to make some changes, or what it was going to take to get the program back and headed in the right direction. I don't think the Curtis Blackwell thing did it, though. I just, from what I know of D'Antonio, for him to let Blackwell drive him away, if anything, there was a part of me that thinks Blackwell would, if he thought that was the perception, that would get him to stay. I do think he always intended to retire after this year, and as he got away from the season, and as you start the grind of the off season and the things you sort of hadn't planned to do, and you can tell your heart isn't in it, I think there's legitimacy there. I really do. And from people I've talked to around the program and people who who know him well and meet with him, and he was not forced out, and there was no sign from them that it was the Curtis Blackwell deposition or lawsuit specifically that drove him to do this. So I think it was mostly just fatigue and a will. And I'm sure there's subliminally a lot of things, and then I think also there's no question the money was a factor that in terms of at least sticking out through mid-January. And but you sort of have to take him at his word, because there's no evidence right now that it was anything else. And I'm not just talking about from his mouth, from other people around him.
All right, the last 2 years have been pretty mediocre record-wise. Is the program at a mediocre state, or did they just underachieve? Could new coach, new blood turn this around quickly, or are they in the beginning process of a rebuild?
Well, yeah, no, they're mediocre right now for sure. I mean, there's no question about it. I mean, they've had a pretty mediocre at best 4 years, and so you get to a certain point, and that you are what you are. Your record is, and they've had 2 straight seasons where they've won just enough to get to a bowl game, and their offense hasn't been very good in a long time. Their offensive line hasn't been good enough to compete, and I do think the time, I think it's better that he walked away now than a year from now. And one of the things I had been writing is that if you're going to do this and stay in the fight, this needs to be a 3 or 4 year commitment, because the program is not in a place right now where you're going into a big year and trying to have one final big year. That was what last year he thought could be. And if he was just planning to come back for one, then he deserved criticism when he left after next year. Because what they have right now is it's a defense that's going to be in transition. There's still some decent players there. But on offense, there is some hope. You've got a young offensive line that maybe this group is better than the last, that they really think is promising. And you've got some playmakers at receiver, some young guys, a key transfer coming in, and some other guys that showed some real promise. They're going to have to figure out the quarterback position. They got 3 guys on the roster. Who knows if they bring in a grad transfer? But there's a chance that the offense looks a little bit different and has the weapons to do so. So you've got a situation where you may not be great next year, but you might look different. It might be a different kind of mediocrity where you're at least playing a more exciting brand of football. And if you're a new coach, what you really need from year one is people to see hope and to see a direction that they can get on board with and to enjoy the games. And so the roster sets up next year to have that potential at least. And so it's not a horrible time for a first-year coach.
All right. Yesterday, we saw that Narduzzi put his video out. He's staying. You can always read that two ways. One, he's not getting the offer that he wanted, or two, someone else is getting it. But with what Narduzzi's comments were yesterday, do you think they're close with Fickell? I went back up for the Michigan State game talking to people, and they were talking about Fickell in November. So I know that's the guy they want. How much of a chance do you think they have to get him? What percent would you put on Fickell taking this job? And they made mention they want to do it really soon, but you got a president that came from Slippery Rock, and then you got an athletic director who basically never has done it before. I mean, you have two people who have no clue how to run an athletic department, and they've got to hire a football coach, the most important hire that they will make, maybe until next year if that one and done thing happens and Izzo lays claim that he's going to quit. But how close are they in Fickell? And if it's not Fickell, then where?
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good question. That's what we're all trying to get a sense of, whether that is truly happening right now and could happen today or tomorrow. And I think it's probably, that's their guy that they're targeting. And, it's not an awful buyout with him. And, I think it's a job that looks from the outside like a fit for him and for Michigan State and his relationship with D'Antonio and the number of staffers there that have connections to D'Antonio and to there's one guy who played at Michigan State, and there's a lot of relationship stuff there. And so for Fickell, what I don't know is obviously Michigan State's a step up from Cincinnati, a significant step up, and a place you can win at a higher level. But is that where he wants to make his step? He's 46 years old, so he's definitely got a move in him. And does he want to do it there? Or does he think he's got a squad at Cincinnati where he can win for a couple of years and move into like a top 10 program range if something else opens up? Is that what he'd rather do? Is Michigan State the type of destination job he wants? And that's what I don't know. They ought to be doing their due diligence beyond Fickell. I mean, I think he's everything you read and everything you know of him. That's a fine choice. And the one thing D'Antonio did is he sort of set a path for what fit looks like. They've struggled with that at Michigan State. They've missed on that. And but I also think you got to let the interview do the work for you. I mean, the best hires they have had at that job in the last 25 years have been guys that have really wowed them in the interview, and that's Nick Saban, and that's Mark D'Antonio. And let that do the work for you and interview more than one guy and reach out to people. And I also think the timing is weird and interesting. In some ways it's not ideal, but in some ways it could be beneficial. And they're the only job out there. Michigan State is the market. And so if there's anybody out there who's unhappy with their situation or is thinking about this sort of move from any walk of NFL coordinator or anywhere in college, somebody may reach out that they're not expecting. You got to let that happen. You got to reach out to Saban and Urban Meyer. I mean, Urban Meyer obviously knows Fickell and these guys, and guys you have relationships with, and pick their brains about other guys who may deserve this chance or would be really good. And obviously, you got to do all this really quickly. But if you're just stuck on Luke Fickell, that's fine if you've really done it. But I think you've got to also let the interview do the work for you and make sure that you're not leaving out there somebody who would be an extraordinary hire beyond him.
Graham, you're born and raised in Lansing. I'm a 92 grad of Michigan State, born and raised in Saginaw. I mean, this was obviously the best period of Michigan State football of our lifetimes. Will it be, when it's all said and done, do you think you'll ever cover a better stretch of Spartan football than you did under Mark D'Antonio?
No, I don't think they'll ever go 36-5 again. And that's ultimately what they're trying to find, right? Is Mark D'Antonio 2.0? You're trying to find those first 9 years, somebody who can build and energize a program and then put together a stretch basically like 2010 through 2015, and that's really hard to do. And there are some dynamics that allowed that to happen, but they also, I mean, to win 12 games a year basically for 3 years at Michigan State is pretty incredible sustained excellence. And it's just, I mean, they could have a great coach, they could have a great run, but they're only, and they obviously changed the number of games they played from the beginning of the 2000s. But when you look at win percentage, there are 9 other programs that have had a 3-year run like that, and they are all just they are the massive programs in college football history. And not even Florida, when they were in their heyday with Tim Tebow, put together 3 years at that level. And so that tells you how rare it is, how hard it is to do. The company Michigan State was keeping for a brief time, and how hard it is then to sustain, because we saw what happened in 2016 when they tried to up their recruiting and go after a different caliber of recruit, and how that all fell apart when they got away from kind of who they were. And here's the reason it's so hard to sustain. And maybe the new guy comes in and recruits at a different level, and that gives them a chance to do something at a different level. But, Michigan State fell apart not because of the 2016 recruiting class. It fell apart because of the 2012 and 13 recruiting class. And that's what's hard to do. I mean, 10 and 11 built what they did. 12 and 13 were a lot of misses, especially 13. And so when 2016 rolled around and you get this class of 10 4-stars, a little bit entitled kids coming in after a program that feels a little entitled, what you lacked was leadership, some key areas. And if the 2015 guys had been around in 2016, I think that may have gone differently. But when you miss in 2012 and 13, you don't have those kids in 2016. So what happens, in other words, when you're trying to build a program with 3-star kids primarily and some 4-stars, is you can just never miss. And that's almost impossible to do.
He's Graham Couch, Lansing State Journal. Follow him on Twitter, Graham_Couch. Graham, appreciate your time and your insight. Be well.
Anytime. Take care, guys.
Graham Couch, kind enough to join us on the Goldberg Noon Abraham Law Firm Hotline. Local people, local practice, local knowledge, Goldberg-Law.com. If you were Fickell, would you take the job? I wouldn't.
Oh, boy.
I wouldn't. I'm 46. And don't take offense because it's your alma mater.
I don't.
I got one big move in me. I'd hold out for something better. My thought is I can do 2-3 more years at Cincinnati, and another Michigan State-type job can open up. I can always take it.
Well, yeah, you can always get that job, and I think that's what it is. The question is for Fickell in particular. I don't think a move out, like he's an Ohio guy.
Right.
So I do think there are limitations. Yeah, you can get hired anywhere, but your chances for success are not great everywhere. We have seen that when coaches leave their territory, if you will. So let me ask you, to me, it's like if Tennessee opened, that's where Luke Fickell could go. Like, that's a job that's a better job than Michigan State.
Oh, this is going to get people upset. I'm actually thinking Michigan. I'll pass on State and wait for Michigan. Just throwing that out there. I'll give Harbaugh 3 more years.
And maybe and
at 49 I'll slide over.
Well, and you may be right, but the only ones now, I know he got let go at Ohio State, but he's in Ohio. I just don't know. That's the one there. But no, it's a great point. But I mean, what other job? Okay, you said it. So there's no other job in the Big Ten that fit. I mean, because he's not going to get the Ohio State job. He's not going anywhere.
How about I wait 2-3 more years? I get Penn State.
Well, that's the other one. Would Franklin take an NFL job? And
Franklin at some points. I mean, Franklin's always angling for the next job. I know he just re-upped and got more money, but would it really shock anybody if in 2-3 years Franklin leaves? And if you're Penn State, I mean, you'd be all over a Luke Fickell. So it's why I'd pass. I'm 46. 56, I'd take it. 46, you know what? One of the 2 others in the East that are above that job will probably open up.
Right. No, I mean,
I'll be at the top of the list.
It's South Carolina. That's what job it is in the Big Ten. It's South Carolina. I mean, it almost is exactly South Carolina
if you're Josh Heupel, would you leave? Now, granted, you get paid at South Carolina, but if you're Josh Heupel at UCF, would you leave for South Carolina?
Yes.
I wouldn't.
I know you would.
To me, I'm strictly taking the cash. That's what that job is. I'm going to go 4 or 5 years. I'm going to get fired. I'm never going to have as that good a job again.
And I look at South Carolina a little differently than most people because I have been on how good the football's been getting in that area, and I think the recruiting will just continue to improve in North Carolina because their football's so much damn better than it was 10 years ago. So, but you're right. Michigan State, South Carolina, Iowa State might be a better job than Michigan State right now. You don't have the money in the Big 12, but your chance of finishing third in your conference is a lot better.
I don't think it's as good a job. All right. I just don't. But I do think your odds of going 8-4 are every bit as good in Ames as it is in West Lansing. So in that sense, I can stay here. I can win my 8 games. I can be relevant. It's easier to get to 8-4 here than it is there.
But I think those 3 schools, Iowa State, Michigan State, South Carolina, they're very similar. Iowa's the big boy. Clemson right now is the big boy, and Michigan will always be the big boy. And all of those schools are never really going to be more than third best on their side, and they all play a non-conference game pretty much against a really good team every year. South Carolina's got Clemson, Iowa State's got Iowa, Michigan State more years than not was playing Notre Dame. They're the same school.
Graham Couch, kind enough to join us from the Lansing State Journal here on Miller and Moulton. Our poll question dealt with the NFL. There's a big meeting taking place in Los Angeles today. It's with the NFL Players Association. And the NFL, if reports are to be believed, has pretty much put their cards on the table. They've said to the NFLPA, we're going to give you 1.5% more of the revenue. We're going to go from 47% to 48.5%. We're going to add a 17th game, and that's going to give you another $500 million a year for you guys to distribute amongst yourselves because of playing that extra game. Now, you got about 1,800 players. Do the math as to how much more money that is going to mean for your rank and file. And then, they're going to... And, by the way, the players want even less contact and less practice time before the start of the regular season. And they'll probably get it because the owners don't care about that sort of thing. And the coaches aren't involved in these negotiations. So they'll sell the coaches down the river. The owners don't care. And also the players are going to get very little to no marijuana testing. Also, that reportedly that's in the next deal as well. There's no reason that we need to be testing for this stuff, considering in how many states is it now legal, and we can get into the whole medical debate, etc. So they're getting a few things, but ultimately, right now, this is the owners wanting a 17th game, and this is the players who genuinely don't want it. And so the players are going to have to either decide amongst themselves, well, okay, let's go along with this, or the players are reportedly pressing the owners to go, we'll make you a trade. We'll give you your 17th game, which we really don't want to do. You got to give us guaranteed contracts, which you really don't want to do. We'll give you something, you give us something. Deal. And the owners are like, nah, I don't think so. So that's the Players Association meeting in amongst themselves today in Los Angeles. What are they going to decide? Because the NFL wants to get this thing done. The NFL's already had preliminary meetings with the networks, Mark. I mean, they want to negotiate this 10-year deal, not only with the NFLPA, they then want to sit down and negotiate a minimum of 8-year deal with the TV networks. Minimum. Maybe even a 10, 11, 12-year deal with the networks. So that's the meeting, which led to our poll question.
Should NFL contracts be guaranteed? And David says, of course they should. And I love the way that it is. Should they be guaranteed? Probably. Would we like the league as much? I don't know. I think one of the things that people really like about the NFL versus the other 3 sports is if you don't play well, they cut you.
But see, if that was the only case of guys getting cut, I'd be totally on board. But we all know they just decide, I don't want to pay you. You're a good player and you've been here 7 years, but I don't want to pay you $3 million. I'm going to draft some guy in the 6th round and pay him $500,000. I mean that's all. And they're able to do that because the contracts aren't guaranteed. They're like, we can get rid of this guy. It won't cost us a penny on the cap. And there's really no good reason to get rid of him. I mean, there isn't.
Well, and I mean, how many times do we see a guy basically get cut and then re-signs with the same team? Because they're just like, yeah, I'm not paying you that.
Right. Even though I signed you to that contract, I now don't want to live up to it.
Now, in my opinion, you're not worth that.
Well, and you know what? You may still be, but I can put the screws to you, and I'm gonna, because I can.
And I have said all along, there will be more yeses than nos because of the way the question is worded. If it was worded, would you want your team to have guaranteed contracts? I think it would be overwhelmingly no, because on your team, when he's no good, we got to get rid of him.
You know what we should have done, and I didn't realize how brilliant that answer was when you said, well, the question is worded, should it be guaranteed contracts? And you said, probably. Maybe we should have had a third choice. Yes, no, or probably. Because I do think most people are right in between. They're not willing to go as far as yes, but they would be willing to go to probably.
Because, David, is so hard to argue against the points you're making. Your points are really good, but I'm sitting here going, yeah, I don't care about your damn point. If my right guard doesn't play up to par, I want his ass out of town.
Don't sign him to the long-term big money deal then. Do a better job of negotiating.
By the way, anybody that's a fan of the Boston Red Sox that is voting no to this question, we have to talk. Because you spent yesterday complaining that your team didn't sign Mookie Betts to a long-term deal.
In a non-salary cap sport. Right. Luxury tax does not mean salary cap unless you decide it does. Miller and Moulton. NBA trading deadline's at 3 o'clock. I mean, that's 6.5 hours away. Ben Wittenstein, host of the Points in the Paint podcast, he will join us next. Heat made a big deal overnight. There have been about 3 sizable, noteworthy deals so far. Will there be the big one in the next 6 hours? Ben Wittenstein next to talk about it. Miller and Moulton, Southwest Florida's Fox Sports Radio.
Sometimes we just gotta take a moment.
That's what we gotta do.
Take that deep breath.
Take a breath and relax.
I'm very relaxed.
And say, damn, we're living our best life.
Yes.
From the MLB.
Deep left center field. This one's got a chance. Gone!
To the NFL.
Touchdown! 83 yards!
To the NBA. We're all laughing and just living and loving all of this.
Love it.
On Fox Sports Radio.
This is Mark Miller for Tim Tracing Motors, and I'm with Wes Dobbins, a very satisfied Tim Tracing Motors customer.
Thanks, Mark. Over the past 20 years, my family and I have purchased at least 17 vehicles from Tim Tracing Motors. Everything from Beamers to town cars to Cadillacs to cars for our kids to the Toyota Avalon and Highlander that we currently own. We've always been impressed by the thoughtful, straightforward way that Tim and Matt do business. We especially appreciate that they're so picky about the quality of cars that they bring to the market. They have always stood behind their cars, and that's why we'll continue to be loyal Tim Tracing Motors customers.
Well, there you have it. Visit online at timmotors.com. That's timmotors.com, or call to set up an appointment at 275-7900. 275-7900. At Tim Tracing Motors, they are confident when you meet them, you'll agree that you've never been to a dealership like theirs before. Visit online at timmotors.com. That's timmotors.com, or call to set up an appointment at 275-7900. 275-7900.
Pool need a checkup? Call the doctor, the Pool Doctor.
Hi, Dr. Mark here. Clients love their salt system for silky smooth water, less maintenance, and they never buy chlorine. If you want the ultimate, we can add a BioShield for UV water disinfection. We're a family company, and for over 40 years, we've been doing business right.
The prescription is the Pool Doctor for award-winning pool service, repairs, and unheard of $39 diagnostic calls. That's mypooldoctor.com or 239-574-1133. State certified CPC 057088.
If you needed heart surgery, who would you call? A doctor who's done it every day, or a doctor who's done it once a year? The same is true about your erectile dysfunction. At the Fort Myers Men's Clinic, our Florida physicians focus on one thing: solving your ED. High blood pressure, diabetes, high cholesterol, prostate cancer, these all contribute to your ED. And our physicians at the Fort Myers Men's Clinic know how to solve your problems. We have over 50 different custom formulations tailored just for you.
The
you get to
commute
try
part
the medication
bothers me more
containing
than the
FDA-approved ingredients right in our
Fuck, I
office.
forgot what
Your
it's like
total
having to
cost
get
for the
trapped.
consultation, test dose, testosterone, and PSA test is only $99.
Every night going
If the
home.
test
Last
dose doesn't
night,
work,
I
you
put
pay us
Waze on
nothing.
'cause it'll tell me
So you
which
have
way to go.
absolutely
Based on
nothing to
traffic.
lose, but everything to
Last
gain. Call now.
I'm down on Trade
239-317-7777.
You
That's
turn on Trade Center off at airport,
317-7777.
So there's
And move
Trade
from
Center, then
skeptic
there's the
to
light. I
believer.
don't know what that would anyhow.
317-7777.
It sends me, I come out to the light.
317-7777
It
or
sends me
online at
instead of left to airport, it sends me
FortMyersMen'sClinic.com.
right behind.
103.3 North
Back,
Fort
I'm like,
Myers.
Then I'm watching this lady.
Hey,
who's
it's
in the left
Tony.
lane,
Happy
and I had to
Valentine's
pass her on
Day.
the right 'cause
Bring
she's
the
going
one you
72
love
on
to
the left
Anthony's
lane.
for a steak
And I
and
watch
lobster
her, and I get
dinner.
over on the right,
This
she's up
Valentine's,
behind.
enjoy
Then I
steak
get
and
to
lobster
the
dinner
car,
served with champagne,
double
only
lane
$65 per
change,
couple
cut
at
someone off,
Anthony's
right
on the
on the
Boulevard.
bridge.
Call 239-772-5900
Now I'm
to
excited.
make your reservation.
Now I'm in the
Anthony's
left
on the
lane.
Boulevard is the Cape's choice for live entertainment. Karaoke Mondays,
What,
poker
Jero?
and bar bingo on Tuesdays. Wednesday is trivia and live music on the patio. Every Thursday, national comedians take the stage, then dance
Jero,
the
did
weekend
you
away
say
with
something?
live music on the patio. Check Anthony's on the BLVD.net or like them on Facebook for event updates.
Apparently not.
Anthony's popular daily lunch, only $9 with free beer or soft drink. Many items to choose from. Plus,
it
Anthony's
was
best
the
Sunday
hitman for
breakfast
Pablo
buffet
Escobar.
served from 8
I
to
wondered
1
why
with
Popeye
made-to-order
was
omelet station
trendy.
and free coffee. Anthony's on the Boulevard, 1303 Del Prado Boulevard South. Call 772-5900 or sign up at anthonysontheboulevard.net to receive a free breakfast buffet.
Ever purchased an online item and either it doesn't fit, has missing parts, or became damaged? Trying to save a few bucks can end up costing more. My Shower Door is a locally owned and operated family business that measures, manufactures, and installs
my
our own brand of frameless shower doors right here in Southwest Florida. And we were just named Lee County's Manufacturer of the Year. With almost 80,000 shower doors
Gotta watch
installed,
this
we
guy
have the
take-
experience and expertise. Plus,
On a
estimates
parking
are always
meter.
free.
Oh.
Want to see more? Go to myshowerdor.com.
Now back to Miller and Moulton.
All right, now we're getting somewhere.
No. This is Miller and Moulton.
You're live.
.30 straight up. The home stretch of Miller and Moulton on this Thursday. Thanks for making us part of your day. You miss any part of the show, we podcast it. The Connecticut Cast, 6 o'clock hour, 7 o'clock hour, 8 o'clock hour. Connecticut Quality Water Systems of Southwest Florida, 908-2300, the best damn water that the two of us have ever had, and that's why combined we have been customers for over 30 years, and we highly, highly recommend them. 249-8167 is the Williamson Brothers Marine and Roofing text line, 249-8167. Hope to catch up and talk a little NBA with Ben Wittenstein coming up here momentarily. Trade deadline, you know me, Mark. If it's a trade deadline, I am all in. I love the nooks and crannies
I
deals.
know.
I love the 4-team, 12-player, 3 first-round draft pick deals. I love them all. I really do. We've had an active week. You throw in the big Mookie Betts trade, which, oh, by the way, right now is held up for a moment. The medicals on one of the prospects involved in the deal. A little cause for concern. So just the deal's not 100% yet. Just throwing that one out there.
All right.
So Bears White probably going to go through. They normally all do, but as of right now, yet to go through. 249-8167, Williamson Brothers Marine and Roofing text line. But the NBA trade deadline coming up 3 o'clock this afternoon. Heat made a deal last night. If you missed it, Justin Winslow, former first-round pick, he's just 23 years old, and he's already been in the league. This is his 5th year. Heat give up on him, send him to Memphis. They get Andre Iguodala, who signs a 2-year deal, rest of this year and all of next year. He's 36, hasn't played at all this year.
And wasn't going to play unless he got traded.
Right.
Got your caller.
He was not going to play with Memphis. Ben Wittenstein, kind enough to join us, host of the Points in the Paint podcast. Points in the Paint podcast. Follow him on Twitter at Ben Wittenstein. Ben, good morning. How are you?
Good morning, guys. How are you doing? Appreciate you having me on.
Well, we are thrilled. Let's get to, don't know if you heard me talking about the Heat deal. Your thoughts, Ben, I've heard some who think that Winslow's every bit as good and 13 years younger than Iguodala, and I've heard some that have already said, oh, come on, you got to be kidding me. Iguodala makes him much better for the playoffs. Where are you on the deal?
Yeah, so I actually think it's good for both teams in this scenario. Winslow, like you said, a lot of people really like his talent, and the fact that he's so young, only at 23, shows a lot of upside. But for any, Heat fans that probably know, he does struggle with injuries, and he's got that back injury that's been allowed him to only play 11 games this season. And I think someone like Pat Riley, who has been able to see his medicals and kind of knows what type of player he is and knows what kind of team that he has and the ability that they have had without him on the court, I think he knows that he kind of had a good player to trade and someone to get back in Iguodala, who has that veteran savvy, who's been to the NBA Finals, and who has the ability to kind of mentor and guide a relatively young Miami Heat team. So I think in this scenario, I think what the Grizzlies get is a young player, a lot of upside, potentially a change in city could help him and improve his play, and someone who can fit in with a young core with the Grizzlies. And he get back a veteran player who has the experience and can mentor some of their younger players.
Do you think, though, that Iguodala, and there's also talk that they're about to get Gallinari from Denver, if they're able to bring in Iguodala and Gallinari, do you think this elevates the Heat into a team that can walk on the floor with the Bucks in a conference final and give them a series, or no?
I think it does, and I was kind of in the camp where I thought they probably were a team even before this trade that could play with the NBA's best. I'm a huge Kendrick Nunn fan. I'm a big Jimmy Butler fan. I mean, I think these are guys who, with the team around them, with Bam Adebayo, they have the ability to play with anybody in the NBA. So I think that adding Gallinari, if they do get Gallinari, who could spread the floor, 6'10", a big guy who can shoot, who can really be able to extend the range of the team, and someone in Iguodala who can guard, even though he's 36, I think he has the ability to guard some of the NBA's best players still, especially being out more than half the year at this point. He's still been training. He still has that athletic ability. So I think just adding these two players adds to their depth, and they have the young team around them as well. So, I mean, I think this is a team that can compete with the Bucks. They can compete with the Clippers, compete with the Lakers. They have that ability. And with Spoelstra, he knows how to coach a team, and he's been to the finals. He knows how to coach a team through the playoffs. So I think you add all of those ingredients together, and I think it makes for a team that can compete with anyone in the NBA in any night.
And, Mark, I said Gallinari with Denver. He spent a long time with Denver, but he's with Oklahoma City these days. My bad.
Okay, and I'm sure most of our highbrow NBA audience picked right up on that day in Southwest Florida. What's the biggest move out there that could happen today, Ben?
That's a very good question, and I think it'll be interesting to see, kind of, as you mentioned with the Gallinari deal, where that all fits. If Jay Crowder from Memphis is going to be going to Miami, if they're going to send him over to Oklahoma City, So I think that is something to follow, because I don't think the details have been fully figured out with that. But some players that I'm interested in seeing move is one of them maybe Tristan Thompson from the Cleveland Cavaliers. There's a lot of teams that are kind of looking for that big man, and the Cavaliers, being in the position that they are, have been probably looking to ship him somewhere different. And he could be a big player for a lot of teams who are looking for some rebounding help, like the Boston Celtics have been out there, maybe the Los Angeles Clippers. So he's kind of the bigger player that I think may be possibly on the move come today. But it's been interesting, because I think that, especially in years past with the NBA, the trade deadline has been this whole big scenario, this big event, and a lot of big names have been moving to different places. And this year it seems like, other than, as you mentioned, the 12-player, 4-team deal, the most players in a deal since 2000, other than that happening, I don't expect there to be any huge trades today. I just think there's a lot of teams that feel pretty set in where they are, and they just need a couple more smaller pieces to move ahead where they think they can be competitors come playoff time. So I don't think we're going to see a lot of huge names on the move, but we may see some of those small pieces go to different teams, kind of like what Philadelphia did, getting Alec Burks. and Glenn Robinson III late last night to kind of shape up their bench and add some three-point shooting. So I think we're going to see a little bit more in that type of trades where it's smaller role player guys moving for second-round picks around the league.
You think the Spurs will break up DeRozan and Aldridge? Love's been on the market. Drummond's been on the market. Two bad teams in the East. I mean, a lot really could go down today if teams are inclined to do so, because it seems as if these guys are all going to get moved in June or July. So why not have the impetus to move them in February?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point as well. I mean, if you look at someone like the Spurs, as you mentioned, they're a team that is on the outside of the playoffs looking in. So I think it depends on if they still believe that they're a team that can make the playoffs. Right now they sit 10th in the West. They're 3.5 games out of that 8th spot where the Grizzlies stand. So, I mean, if they're a team that feels that they do not have a shot at making the playoffs, so they don't feel like the 8th seed is even worth trying for, we may see them move some of their stars for draft picks or younger players, because at that point, it's just not worth making the playoffs as an 8th seed if you're just going to get hounded by the Lakers or the Clippers, whoever's in first in the West. So we may see that with Drummond. I know the Pistons have been kind of shopping him as well. It just depends what team wants to take on his contract. He's still a young player, but he's going to demand a lot of money. It's kind of the same thing what we saw with the Hawks. They got Clint Capella, a guy who's younger than Drummond, who may not put up the points, but has the defense, but his contract is going to be worth less than what Drummond would demand. So with something like that, with Drummond, you're going to want a team that has the space, that has the luxury space to be able to afford him. So I think it comes down to that. Well, we may see teams who are in the 8th or 9th or 10th spot maybe make some moves because of that, but it kind of depends on the contract situation as well with some of these players.
How hard is it to get out of the NBA purgatory? The Detroits, maybe Brooklyn to a little lesser extent, but you know what I mean. Those teams that seem to flutter between 8th if they're lucky and 11th in their conference, never good enough to get a good lottery pick and never good enough to advance. I mean, just how tough is it for that other rung of teams to move out of that? And is there anything they can do? The Pistons move Drummond. Does that really matter long-term to the Pistons being good? That's what it seems like. A lot of these teams getting rid of parts, it doesn't really seem to help their long-term goals.
Yeah, NBA purgatory is probably one of the worst places in sports for any team to be. You're getting to the playoffs maybe a little consistently, but you're not doing well enough to move through the playoffs. And then once you're out of the playoffs in the first round, you just don't have a good draft pick to help your team improve in its playoff run. So it's a really tough spot to be in. I think the key for any team who is in that spot is they need to make a decision on what team they want to be kind of right around now, right around the trade deadline, a little bit before the All-Star game. If they really do believe that they can get to that 8th or 7th spot and then compete with the top team in their conference, then they should go all in. They should trade their first-round draft pick for the year to try to bring in a superstar or a star player to help them over that hump. But if they have any shadow of a doubt, if they don't think that they are going to be able to compete and get past that first round, I'm of the opinion that you don't blow it all up, but you really try to tank for that higher draft pick, because that's what's going to help you get over the edge. There really is not a huge point in being that 8th seed and getting knocked out of the first round of the playoffs every single year if you're trying to get into that top spot in the conference. So with a team like the Pistons, they just are a team, as you said, they're in purgatory. They're not going to be able to really do much in terms of either making the playoffs or even getting that 8th seed and getting past the first round of the playoffs. So it would be, in my opinion, in their best interest to trade someone like Drummond, to trade someone like Derrick Rose, get those draft picks, maybe get even a younger player, someone who's 20, 19, 21, who's a little bit more raw, who has the ability to be coached by a great coach like Dwayne Casey and improved upon. So if you're in that situation, you really have to figure out what team you are midway through the season and kind of make dramatic acts. One way to try to trade draft picks and get stars to make that playoff run, or really do a mini blow up and try to get those draft picks back so you can make some moves in the coming years.
All right, Ben, final question. It seems as if out west, the Lakers and the Clippers are going to fight over Marcus Morris of the Knicks, and then the loser may make a deal to try to compensate for that. Which GM more likely in the East to pull off something significant today? Elton Brand of the Sixers or Danny Ainge of the Celtics?
That's a really good question, and I think, and I know the Celtics have been looking for a big man. They do need that help down low, but I've been a big fan of Elton Brand and what he's done with the 76ers, and he's already made a small move with Alec Burks and Glenn Robinson III. So I think that the 76ers are not quite done with what they want to do, and I think they know that they have been inconsistent, especially in the offensive side of the ball this season. So I wouldn't be surprised if Elton Brand has a couple more moves hidden in his pocket for today. And I wouldn't be surprised if the Celtics made a move, but I'm expecting the 76ers to be a little bit more aggressive. And Elton Brand has shown in the past that he wants to be aggressive. He can be aggressive. He has no issue with it. So I would expect the 76ers to probably make at least one more move before the trade deadline this afternoon.
Ben, thanks for your time. We really appreciate it. Hopefully we can do this again.
Yeah, guys, appreciate it. Always fun.
Ben Wittenstein, host of Points in the Paint podcast. The Points in the Paint. Follow him on Twitter at Ben Wittenstein, which is Witten, and then Stein. I'm just throwing this one out there. Horford, for whatever reason, seems to be a bad fit with Embiid. He's kind of in his way. What if the Sixers traded Horford to Cleveland for Kevin Love? Sixers need outside shooting, and they need better spacing. And I know that Love will, yes, he's not as good a defender, and he's not really going to help them defend a couple of the bigs they may need to defend in the East. But I'm just, one of those deals. And then Cleveland, you can deal Horford in the offseason.
Well, but, what is the one consistent thing that you have done every morning at around 6:38? Is you've told us just how many damn points they are scoring in the NBA right now.
Yes.
So, to your theory, to your point, if Horford is the guy they need defensively, but Love brings them more points, and I know in the playoffs defense will tighten, but it may make sense for both. I mean, you are onto something because you have a point guard that won't shoot three-pointers in Philadelphia.
Right. I mean, literally won't shoot them.
No.
Make them.
He won't shoot them.
And if you can space the floor, you give him more room to penetrate. Horford just seems to be in Embiid's way. It is pretty clear, by the way, that Embiid and Simmons right now are not getting along. I mean, this could all blow up in Philly, to be honest. I mean, they may lose a coach over this. They may have to trade one of their two guys over this. I mean, right now this is on the edge of not working. I mean, remember, they lost to the team that won the NBA title on a buzzer beater in Game 7. I mean, how close were the Sixers a year ago, if you know what I mean? And now look at where they are, where it looks as if they're kind of teetering in the East. It could go in any direction. I'm curious if something significant gets done. If it's not just a bunch of solid trades, which is what everybody's hinting at, but I'm wondering if somebody's got a blockbuster in them in 6 hours.
But I'm telling you, it is, I started thinking about it. He started mentioning, the Pistons might trade Drummond, and I don't even care about the Pistons anymore. But I mean, because they've been in that spot.
They're in purgatory.
They've been in purgatory.
8-11. You nailed it.
And it's hell to get out of. That is the one. Football, it's tough. But free agency and parity, it seems that you can meander your way out of it. Plus, draft picks are worth more. The draft is more important in football. You can move if you're a 8-8 team to go down or up or do whatever you have to do. Basketball, you can't move into the lottery if you're the 15th pick, 18th pick. It just doesn't happen.
It's really hard. You got to give up a lot.
Right.
You got to give up a lot.
And if you're in those spots, you don't have a lot to give up.
No, and what you end up having to do is you end up having to nail every draft pick. And when you're outside the top 10 drafting, it's a bit of a crap.
And if you're Minnesota, Milwaukee, Detroit, Cleveland, hey, it's not easy to get free agents to come there.
Well, you end up having to overpay,
which
then gets you in cap. You know what? And then if it doesn't all work out, you're having to completely rebuild and try it again. Miller and Moulton. But NBA trade deadline, 3 o'clock this afternoon. We'll see if anything.
Set your watches now for 2:59.
Come on now.
In fact, what I would like everybody to do today is text me at 301.
I hate when you do this.
249-8167 and give me your thoughts of the NBA trade deadline moves.
Making fun of a trade deadline.
The good, the bad, and the NBA trade deadline is next.
I hope I get to shove this up you tomorrow. I really do.
Right.
Now
LeBron's getting traded.
Now I'm rooting for a blockbuster.
Keep rooting. Miller and Moulton, Fox Sports Radio, streaming at foxsportsfm.com.
And by Blockbuster, I mean video.
And trade.
This is the Dan Patrick Show.
We're talking to Reggie Miller, the Hall of Famer, Turner Sports NBA.
You're clear.
Perfect.
I felt that I really helped raise this young man. I was
David, I should
crying
have read
like a
this.
baby.
The Heat may get
yesterday
Gennaro Gallinari.
because
I am
we
so
opened our
into
home
this team.
to Kobe.
Not a huge
At such a
NBA
young
fan,
age.
but I'm all in
We
on this
saw
team.
him
I
grow
feel
up
this
in
is more
front
fun
of
to
us.
watch
I
than
cannot
be a part of the LeBron year.
believe
They actually
this.
moved the ball around. They got some
And
straight
here they
shooters
are,
and Robinson
weekdays
Euro.
at 9
And if they had
on
Gallinari,
Southwest
oh
Florida's
my!
Fox Sports Radio and FoxSportsFM.com.
Dr. Jim D. Raspino from
No,
C4
that
MA
was a genuine text. That was at 8:30. Two texts, 8:25 and 8. No.
We're going to
that
eat
came
healthier.
when
We're going
with
to
the
get to the
Gallinari
gym,
thing. This
and then
thing
come
flew in.
February
No.
1st, And most guys say,
No,
I
do
just
not.
don't have any energy.
Wow.
Before you spend a ton of money on a gym membership and a personal trainer,
I read it
go
the
to
way I received it.
C4MH.com.
Like
We have an
this guy
express
is-
treatment program that will get you over $400
Gallinari, man.
including
Gallinari,
testosterone.
Gallinari
and
is.
in-office doctor consultation for only $45.
I'm a patient at C4MH, and it's safe, convenient, and affordable. Best part is, now I've got the energy to follow through with that New Year's resolution.
Exactly.
Gallinari.
Your workouts become super
Nick said
energized.
Gallinari.
Your $45 gets
Right.
you
Gave him
information
up for
about the
Carmelo
state of
Anthony.
your body.
So, guys, give yourself the
have to
gift
do
of
it.
testosterone
It's
replacement
actually
therapy
James
at
Dolan's
C4MH.com. The leaders in low T care,
Knicks
and
were
make your
poised
resolution this year
really
a successful one.
When they went and got
Remember
Carmelo?
the soap dish? Well, get ready for the soap dish down and dirty when Deanna Wallen from Naples Soap Company returns this Saturday and Sunday from 7 to 8 a.m. here on Fox Sports Radio. You'll hear the latest from experts in the health and wellness community, along with surprise celebrity guests. It's time to share all those sudsy secrets, so get ready for some fun Saturday and Sunday mornings at 7 a.m. on the soap dish down and dirty. Brought to you by Naples Soap Company and heard here on Fox Sports Radio.
Dial star 2020. Friends, I care.
Dr. Jonathan France and the caring team of surgeons at France Eye Care want to help you navigate your vision challenges with an intelligent solution. The PanOptix intraocular lens.
That
France
is the
proud to
greatest
not
thing
only
I've
be the
seen
first
today,
in
and of
Southwest
course,
Florida
he
to
just
bring you
tweeted
this
out
breakthrough technology of a trifocal solution. He's also the #1 PanOptix surgeon in the state of Florida. PanOptix it's specifically designed to help patients see 20/20
it's past
distances
Club Pro
that are
guys
near, far,
because
and
it's
even
just
in between.
consistently
Experience
great.
the freedom of
When
living
Club Pro
without
guy does
glasses
videos
for
and that stuff,
distance
you
driving
can't
or
top it.
computers
The letters-
and reading.
the letters
PanOptix,
to the tour
you'll
winners
experience
are-
a clear advantage you didn't even know
I
was possible.
didn't know my boy,
See your future
Matt,
in
the young kid.
2020.
I didn't
Find out
realize
if
he had
you
not
are a candidate for
closed the start
PanOptix
of the
today
tour.
by dialing
Like a
star
ball
star
swing.
2020 from
He
your
went down
cell
to one
or
event,
call
top 10'd it,
239-418-0999.
Yeah, so he texted me the other day about something we're going back. I'm like, what are you doing this year? He's like, playing.
103.3 downtown Fort Myers.
I love being a bartender. I love waiting tables. But at the end of my shift, my feet were killing me. And so I had to pretend like I was having a good time, and really, I couldn't wait to sit down. But it wasn't just my feet, it was also my knees were achy.
But he's got it. He'll get in his
I was in so much pain. I kind of lost
filling
hope,
fields when
really.
he's played
And
a couple
then
terms. He had
I
one
saw
good
the
finish
Good Feet store,
He had a
and
top
that's
10.
when everything changed.
On the
For
fall
over
swing
20
or
years,
12 or
we've helped
whatever.
people like Kristen enjoy their work again without their feet getting in the way.
It was pretty shocking to realize that I'd been in so much pain.
Yeah, one of those he played
and suddenly I'm completely pain-free.
Buck calls me yesterday.
Now that I have
Buck,
the
you're gonna
Good
kill
Feet
me.
arch supports,
Well, the
I don't
nickel.
have to pretend to be
Of course, a
happy.
week before
I'm
the
genuinely
event,
happy.
they now want us
So,
out there.
cheers. My name is Kristen, and that's my Good Feet story.
See what we can do for you with a free personalized arch support
I go
fitting
literally, if you'd have
at the
called
Good
me
Feet
last
store.
week,
Call
we might have thought about it,
552-FEET or
our
visit us in
producer's
Naples or
taking
our
the day
newest
off.
store in
It's
Fort
easier for
Myers.
management.
Hi, it's Don Shula. Shula Steakhouse is the perfect place for a perfect Valentine's Day. Make your reservations early.
Valentine's Day lunch will be extra special at Shula's with filet mignon medallions and cold water lobster tail with fresh asparagus and drawn butter. Shula's fabulous regular menu is always available, so make your reservations early for Thursday, February 14th lunch with your Valentine. Shula's in the Naples Hilton. Call now, 239-430-4999. That's 430-4999.
From the best headlines, the best, to the worst.
It's the worst thing that ever happened to anybody ever.
Prepare yourself and hide the women and children. This is Mark Miller's Good, Bad, and Ugly on Fox Sports Radio.
Your life.
Oh, yeah. This thing. For the good today, Thank goodness. Thank goodness Giro did some work today, because I'd have been completely out of it.
He sent it to you early.
Oh, he's great. You know, I used to get these around 8 in the past. At 5:30, 5:22, I have time to read through and see if I need to improve upon it.
He's the best part of this show right now.
For the good, we go to Connecticut, where Richard Cobb passed away a year ago after retiring, teaching 40 years at the Taft School. Well, the Children's Community School, a nonprofit in Waterbury, Connecticut, received $500,000 from the late Richard Cobb. He did a lot of things for charities, but he often brought students from the Taft School to volunteer at the elementary school. She says the gift of $500,000 will be used to help the children's community expand and add middle school grades. For the bad, we go to the Everglades. Mark Meals, 67, went to spend a week in the Everglades by himself on a kayak, which seems like a stupid idea right off the start. And it was, because when January 29th came and we couldn't find him, Collier County Sheriff's Department was alerted. And they started searching for the Virginia man, found his belongings on the bank of the Lopez River days later. They found his phone and things used to track most of his recent locations so they could target their search. They did find him floating in the river, dehydrated and experiencing hypothermia. Fortunately alive, he is now being treated at a local hospital. Family said it's a miracle he's alive and in the condition he's in. Ever in a million years, does the idea of kayaking alone in the Everglades sound fun to you?
Fun? Maybe. Dangerous as hell? Yes.
Yeah. Wow.
Between the snakes and the alligators.
Right. Right.
No, I'm good.
Me too.
I'm good.
You know, no one wants to give their ex any money, but to what lengths people will go often amazes us. Because Bruce McConneville of Canada claimed that he burned $1 million in cash in an attempt to ensure his ex-wife is unable to lay her hands on the money as part of a divorce settlement. The only problem is the judge doesn't believe him and has sentenced him to 30 days in jail. He says he burned $743,000 in September and $296,000 in December in a bonfire. But he doesn't have any video evidence, and the judge has added a stipulation to his jail sentence that once he's released, he will be fined $2,000 a day until he reveals where the missing money is. I credit him for his effort. I don't think it's going to work. That is The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly on today, February the 6th, 2020.
What's on tap?
You get out of here and let me watch my program. And close the door when you go, because I don't want those mosquitoes coming in here.
We'll start in the NBA, as we mentioned. Trade deadline's at 3 o'clock. 8 o'clock tonight, TNT. 76ers in Milwaukee to take on the 43-7 Milwaukee Bucks. On pace to win 71 games. 10:30 TNT. If it's not the Clippers, it's the Lakers. Tonight, it's the Lakers hosting the Rockets. So Milwaukee on at 8, the Lakers on at 10:30, the TNT NBA doubleheader. The Magic, who hold down the 8th and final playoff spot in the East, Mark, with a record of 22-29. And they are the 8th seed in the East. They're in New York to face the Knicks. College basketball tonight. Well, you got to pretty much go out west. Colorado's in action at 8 o'clock. They're ranked. Arizona's in action. They're hosting USC on the Deuce at 9 o'clock. Gonzaga's on CBS Sports Network at 11. Hockey tonight. Blades are off tonight, for the record. They're home Friday and Saturday. Detroit and Buffalo at 7 o'clock on NBCSN. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me?
It's 2 times in a week that the Red Wings are on television.
Pittsburgh's in Tampa, and you're showing us Detroit and Buffalo?
It's gross.
Come on.
2 not the worst team in the league and one that's not far off. It's embarrassing.
1 minute.
Yeah.
It's embarrassing.
Now,
and I don't care if they picked this before the season. Everybody before the season knew Detroit was going to be bad.
Then at 9:30, it's interesting. They give us Connor McDavid. Edmonton's hosting San Jose, who's a bad team this year.
But it's Connor McDavid.
They give us Connor McDavid.
I mean, you got Eichel in Buffalo, so there is a player worth watching.
But you couldn't give us Pittsburgh at Tampa, which is 7 o'clock on a Fox Sports Regional.
That I can't watch in my house.
Or you're going to get the Panthers hosting Vegas at 7 o'clock.
That's the one I'll watch. Regional. We should go to that. Oh, you got to work the FTCU game.
Yeah.
2.5-point favorite.
I would take Stetson in the points, believe it or not, because FGCU could win and still not cover. Stetson has played 4 conference games decided by 1 or 2 points this year.
I'm going to go against you. I'll bet right into the Dragon's Nest then. I'm taking FGCU tonight. They're going to win.
I hope so.
They're going to win. They're going to win by 10.
Look at you. 6:45 pregame, 7 o'clock tip, FGCU and Stetson, right here, Southwest Florida's Fox Sports Radio.
We're on the phone with our good friend Tim Meister, owner of the Floor Meisters in Naples.
Great job.
TJ, we hear you've added several
Wait a minute.
I'll be here
tonight
to your great lineup of products at the store. Tell us more about that.
He's working the game for you.
We just ordered 5 new colors of
awesome.
Cortex
Thank you.
stock.
Well, what do you mean? The borax for the potty mouth next to me? What are you talking about? Miller and Moulton fan?
Oh, I said you read the text, and I went blank here.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
My bad.
Angry. That's probably where my dog